effectively. So I always say, describe us in 3 words. It will be build, grow, and scale. That is what we do, and that is what we're about. So in one line, one sentence, we are your partners for smart, scalable revenue growth. Again, build, grow, scale. Yeah. Anyway, you see those words, you can literally substitute B for B partners right there. Okay. I have a very, 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 very quick icebreaker. So we must have heard the phrase cash is king and the customer is king. So I want us to decide who is the actual king. So very quickly, is it cash? Is it your customer? Who is king? A or B? Let me see. Uh, no, it can't be both though. Pick one king. I don't know. I don't know if I don't know of any country with two kings. I don't know. So is it because the customer brings the cash now? Who says C? There's no C. Well, actually, people. So I've heard cash is king. I've heard customer is king. I've heard data is king. I've heard content is king. So there are lots of kings. But in this case, profit. So is it cash? I think cash has it. But then who brings the cash? Okay, we can continue to solve that dilemma, as we go on. But yeah, all right, thank you. So very quickly, I think I will hand over to my colleague Esther to introduce our facilitator, our moderator, our expert to take us through today's session. Esther.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Sorry that my camera is turned off. My network has been quite crazy today. Welcome again to this fireside session. I'm excited. We're all excited to have you here. So I'm going to be introducing the speaker for this session, no other person than Arinze Okonkwo. So Arinze is yes, please, emojis. Yeah, let's appreciate him. Thank you very much. Alize is a seasoned customer success executive with 2 decades of experience driving customer-centric growth at top SaaS companies, including SAP, Oracle, Jumia, and Salesforce. After serving as global head of customer service at Aftership, a global e-commerce SaaS provider, he recently returned to Salesforce to lead post-sales strategy for the platform business with focus on maximizing net dollar retention, improving operational efficiency, and building scalable adoption frameworks. Alize is also the founder of Success Anywhere, which is an incredible newsletter. I'm telling you guys, like if you want to know about customer success as a revenue engine, if you want to know about net growth, like it's so insightful, and I look forward to receiving his newsletter every day in my inbox. So Success Anywhere is a consulting practice that is helping customer success teams accelerate maturity through strategic playbooks and enablement. He's also a passionate advocate for customer success. He speaks frequently on the future of customer success, revenue growth, and empathetic leadership. So please, let's give him a round of applause. Let's celebrate Arinze again for spending his time with us. Thank you. And next is our very own Napa Onusa. So yeah, please let's celebrate her too. So it's my absolute pleasure to introduce her as a moderator for this session. Napa is a seasoned business leader with over 20 years of experience in some of the world's most respected blue chip companies. Her impressive career journey has taken her to leadership roles at Google, Visa, Nokia, Cisco, Microsoft, and Amazon. She once served as the startup segment leader for the Middle East, Africa, and Turkey at AWS, where she led a high-performing team committed to helping startups grow and scale. And now she is the managing partner here at B4B Partners, and she is such a passionate advocate for, scaling, growing, and all of that, and helping teams basically transform their ideas into scalable MVPs through our work, not just in the startup ecosystem, but in the business world and the sales ecosystem as a whole. So with B4B Partners, like Love mentioned, we are your partners for revenue growth, and Napa leads the team here at B4B Partners. But apart from leading the team, she has also coached over 300 individuals around the world, going from a life experience. to just help companies and help individuals to be more rooted in their ambition. So today, we're excited to have these two wonderful individuals here with us, and they are going to just go with the flow and lead us in this fireside session. So yeah, thank you. Over to you, Napa. Napa? Is she here? She's not in the meeting. Okay.
I think we might have lost Napa for a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, she's joining back. Yeah,
back.
yeah. Hi, Napa. Welcome.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes. Okay, we lost you for a second.
Okay. Thank you for waiting. In fact, it's raining. It's raining cats, dogs, and alligators where I am. So let me just disconnect my Wi-Fi. But you guys can hear me okay, right?
Yep.
Did I interrupt your flow, Sarah? Were you still doing intros?
No,
Not at all. I finished my intros like right on time.
Okay.
So you being right on time. Yeah.
Do you know, Arinze, I've actually been looking forward to this conversation, right? And no, for real. See, there's a question I've been wanting to ask you forever. 18 years, almost 2 decades in customer success. You worked in SAP. You worked in Oracle. You worked in Salesforce. You worked in Aftershock.
Yeah.
And now it looks like you are in the sweet spot of the revenue engine.
Yes.
But it wasn't like this 2 decades ago.
No.
So, no, it wasn't like this. So what was it you saw, to build that kind of deep knowledge in something that wasn't regarded at that time, but now it is what every organization, from small businesses all the way to enterprises, are like super laser focused on?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, it was a combination. So first of all, I just want to give a shout out to whoever the DJ was. You guys took me back to my uni days. I'm quite sad that you guys switched off My Place, because that's one of my all-time favorite Nelly songs. But anyway, for me, it was a combination of a couple of things. So one is I try as much as possible in my career to play the long game. To try and you're never 100% accurate, but you try to get a sense of what direction the future is going, and try and align yourself in that direction. So that's number one. And with cloud and understanding that on-premise business, which was just printing money, that business was dead or was dying. Cloud was a new paradigm shift, and once you understood what was going on there, it just made sense, right? Secondly, a little bit of luck as well. I had a manager who, it's interesting because when I was at SAP, right, we were doing value engineering, which was a lot of business cases, ROI, conversations with customers, a little bit of customer success, but not really. And I had a manager, Isabel, if you recall, Isabel.
I remember.
And, she kept telling me, like, we need to find our way out of this value realization thing we're doing and get into customer success proper, right? Because, again, value realization was very, very niche, in the sense that very few companies were doing it. It was maybe SAP and one or two other companies, but she could already see the trajectory that customer success was about to blow up. And so I was, we're very close, and I was fortunate enough to take that advice on board. I couldn't find a customer success role at SAP, but I found one in Oracle, so I had to make the move to get into that space. And then thirdly, look, I stuck around because I really enjoy customer success. And what I enjoy about customer success is we get to do all the fun stuff with customers. Sales, sell, and move on. Support come in when there are issues, and once they're done, they move on. Customer success, we actually get to see what customers do with the product. You know, customers will bobo all sorts of bobo. We want to transform our business and
Of course.
blah, blah, blah. But we're the ones who actually get to see whether this is actually, you know, happening or not. And that's what I've enjoyed about customer success as a function.
So you're kind of saying you saw into the future, because that's a pretty big flex.
A little, I mean, a little
No,
bit.
flex, humble brag. I mean, it's astonishing because I think, Love, you can stop presenting. Customer success it really wasn't a thing then.
It wasn't. It wasn't.
It really wasn't.
Yeah, some companies had some sort of. So again, if you look at Oracle, if you look at Salesforce, customer success started as advanced support or premium support, which customers paid for. But it just meant if you had issues, it was like an escalation manager, someone that could help you, you know, fast track how engineering was working on your ticket, so on and so forth. And then gradually it just evolved from that, right? I mean, the work we're doing on the value realization, return on investment, conversations with customers is what gave me a little bit of an insight, because you can see customers care about this stuff. I'm spending, you know, I've spent $10 million and now I'm spending, you know, another 2 million every year on, remember maintenance fees back then, 22%?
OMG! That's a throwback. That's a Nelly.
Yeah.
You just threw me all the way back, man.
And so you kept having to justify why they were spending so much money with you. Right.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah.
No, go ahead, please.
I was saying, so that was kind of the insight into the future I saw, was if you now move from on-premise into cloud proper, and you're saying a customer has to renew the contract every year or they can take their business somewhere else, then the ROI stuff is going to become even more important. And to get to the ROI, you need to make sure customer is using the product well. Yeah. So that was kind of the slipstream I jumped into.
So I think that's so insightful. I legitimately forgot that we used to actually, after selling, we would now start working with customers and tell them to pay 22% every year of what they paid on product. But I think startups were ahead of the game, 100%. I feel, in terms of customer success. But a lot of organizations still struggle to really understand what's the difference. What's the difference with customer success? What's the difference with sales? And I really want to dive deep into some of the case studies you have, as in how you recognize the efforts of the customer success team. But how would you, like, in the most practical way, kind of let somebody understand what customer success is in the revenue org?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll use 2 points. So one is, very simply, customer support or customer service is reactive. Customer has an issue, they need to reach out to someone who can help them. That's where your service or your support team plays a role and comes into focus. Customer success is proactive, right? So you don't wait for customers to have issues, because you're proactively working with them, you're seeing signals, and you're reaching out based on what you're seeing. And an example would be, okay, you purchased our product in January, we're in May now. When we look at your usage in the system, we can see you've not started using that product at all. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that come renewal time in January of next year, that's going to be a difficult conversation. And so that's the difference between customer service or / support and customer success. The other thing is, you know, most businesses lose money in the first year of acquiring a customer. If you think about how much you pay your sales team, commissions, if you think about how much you spend on marketing, customer acquisition, for every dollar a customer pays you in year one, it's probably costing you like $1.20. You know, for every 100 naira, it's probably costing you 120 naira to get that customer. So when you look at that math, if you're trying to build a profitable business, it's just not mathing.
Ain't mathing.
Right? Which means you need to be able to keep that customer for minimum 1 more year to make money from them.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where customer success as a revenue engine becomes very important. Because if you sign customer A and after a year they leave, that was not profitable. Right. But if you sign customer A and you're able to renew them in year B, it becomes profitable because you're not spending the same amount of money. You're not paying sales commission. You're not doing any marketing spend. So if you can get that customer to spend another 100 naira next year, it's probably only going to cost you about 20 naira. So you're up 80 naira on that transaction, right? Because essentially you're probably just paying your CSM as well as some, some costs. So that's where the math of customer success as a revenue engine starts to make sense.
100%. And I really like the way it's not just about whether the customer is using the product, which is one. It's also, from what you're saying, how the customer is using the product and being able to help them, actually start consuming the benefit from the product.
Absolutely.
Do you feel that this is truly how customer success is set up? And I'm not talking about, Salesforce, where customer success is like on steroids. They're just so good at it. But I mean, generally, do you feel that that is how customer success teams are currently set up with that kind of mindset?
So I'll give you an interesting story before I answer that question.
Oh, no, goody. I'm waiting. Story time.
To show you how amazing Salesforce is at customer success, we actually charge customers for customer success. So as a customer, if you want a CSM, you have to pay for it. And customers pay for it. Our customer success business is like, let me not say the number, but it's in the billions of dollars and it's renewable business customers pay for. So it's now a revenue stream on its own. And Salesforce makes money. Are you
serious?
From customer success, yes.
And Salesforce is SaaS. No, I haven't heard this before. This is not a normal business?
It's not a normal thing, but Salesforce has been doing it for almost 10 years. And now more and more companies are starting to adopt that, that mechanism of actually charging customers for customer success. But to answer your question, no, a lot of companies aren't doing customer success that way. For many organizations, customer success is just support plus, advanced support. CSMs are glorified support staff, and they're only really working with customers when there's an issue. And I think that's a huge missed opportunity. Yeah.
So, okay, now what I've experienced in terms of customer success is, forgive me, annoying calls.
Yes.
And they're so annoying because it almost feels like there's no data behind the call. It's almost like telesales, we have to call these number of customers.
Yes.
And somebody calls, hello, am I speaking to, then they try and pronounce my name on the call. Then they say, we notice you haven't logged in. And I'm like, yes, because now I'm really, and they're like, okay, do you have any problem? I say no, and then they hang up. So I don't even know how you start building this kind of really robust customer success engine as a business.
It honestly, it starts from, every organization needs to have a very clear vision of what customer success looks like, but most importantly, what your charter is. So some businesses use customer success primarily to drive renewal and retention. Some businesses use customer success to drive adoption. Some businesses use customer success to drive expansion, upsell, cross-sell. A lot of businesses do a combination of those things. But you need to have a very clear picture of what your CS team is going to be doing. And then you need to build and hire people that have the skill set to do that, right?
Okay.
If you want CSMs who are going to be focused more on adoption, you probably want to hire CSMs that are a little bit more technical. Because if I get on a call with you, Napa, and I say, I notice you've not been using the product, and you say yes, I'm going to ask you, like, can I understand why? Because I assume you spent this money for a reason. And it might end up being you're having technical issues. And so we're looking for someone who can maybe walk you through and help you answer one or two questions and get you on the way. If you're looking for your CS org to be focused more heavily on expansion, then you're probably going to hire more account manager profile of people, right? People who can really nurture an account, do farming, so on and so forth. So it depends. What you find is a lot of organizations hire CSMs without having clarity on what they want CS to do. And then they also just hire a crazy variety of profiles, in the team. And then they just give them a playbook and tell everyone to go run the playbook. I always tell my teams, the customer doesn't work for you. The notion that you can just put an hour in my calendar to do a QBR, like, it needs to be valuable to me. Otherwise, I'm not going to join, because I don't work for you. I have my day job as well as now having to spend an hour with you asking me questions around why you're not using the product and all these things. So it's also important that as much as you build a playbook or you have an engagement rhythm where you say reach out to a customer 90 days before to have a renewal conversation or whatever, that you give your team the autonomy to ground all of that in reality.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make sense if you're reaching out to a customer who's not using the product well and you're trying to upsell them. But again, if you just give someone a list and give them a playbook, you will have CSMs who are reaching out to a customer who is not using the product well and try to upsell them. So whatever you're doing has to be grounded in reality, and you need to have the right skill set to do the job.
I really like that thought process, right? What does your business need at this point from your CSMs? And then you hire that. We do it in sales. If you are looking at retaining, so it's so interesting to see that across the business, you still have to do that, even for your CSMs. And I like the reality check, because I find more and more that businesses are not who they really think they are, but who they dream they are.
Correct.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So looking at, so let's just say I've set up my CSM team and they're powering. Maybe the focus is on expansion.
Yep.
Now, this is a debate we see a lot between CSMs and AEs.
Yeah.
Who you know where I'm going with this, Arinze? Who is responsible for the upsell?
I laugh because I don't think this question is ever going to go away.
No, it never will. Because what some CSMs do is they'll be like, my customer mentioned this, and they hand it over to the salesperson.
Correct.
Right? In some cases, the CSM doesn't hand over and closes the deal, but doesn't get compensated because they're not seen as salespeople, and then they're highly dissatisfied. So, like,
I'll tell you what I've seen work well, and maybe we start from there. I think you need to incentivize CSMs to care about upsells, but you need to disincentivize them from becoming salespeople and actually closing upsells.
Oh yeah, Arinze, tell us how to do it.
So I'll tell you. So for us,
we
set KPIs for CSMs to generate upsell leads. So if you're generating expansion leads, you get money for that.
Nice.
But it's not your job to close the deal. Like, if you want to close the deal, go become a salesperson. So that's the way we do it. Because you don't want AE and CSM competing on an account. And we've seen that in the past. CSM is trying to sell more quota for product A. AE is trying to sell product B as a cross-sell. Now the customer is asking, like, what's going on? And Oracle is the perfect, like, this is Oracle culture, by the way. Like Larry Ellison encourages competition in accounts.
Yes.
I've been in customer situations where we're trying to sell, our cloud services to a customer, and the infrastructure team is trying to sell hardware to the customer that's competing against what we're trying to sell. It's not the most conducive environment. Somehow Oracle makes it work. But basically,
you think so? You think so?
I mean, they're growing, so I'm going to assume it's working. I don't.
Oh, I like that.
It's been a decade since I worked there, so I don't know. But
Yeah.
but the way we've done it is we incentivize CSMs to find and create those opportunities. But sales focuses on closing it. So create the opportunity in the CRM, and you're gonna get comped on that. And then if sales closes the deal, sales gets comped on that. That way, because the other thing is if you incentivize CSMs to act as salespeople, they will stop doing their CS work of driving adoption and they will start acting as salespeople, is what we
This
found. Yeah.
But our former Chuku said in the chat that for smaller organizations, the account manager sometimes is responsible for CSM work. I've never really approved of it because
Yeah.
sales is new business. That's what your job is, and
Correct.
CSM happens upon new business, right?
Yeah.
In that situation where maybe your organization isn't big enough to have that kind of dedicated teams in
Yeah.
CSM or account management, how do we do it so that the salesperson is comped but also has focus to be able to drive new business and still manage? I still don't agree with it, but I get where these organizations are coming from, because sometimes you just can't afford a CSM yet.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. Like with a company I worked for in the past, the salespeople, the AEs were comped on both new business and expansion, but expansion in specific accounts. Like we had to name the list of accounts.
I see.
The challenge though was, people gravitate towards what they think their strength is. If I'm a hunter, I don't really care about expansion. I'm just going to chase new logos because that's what I'm good at. And what we found was even though CSMs were creating a lot of expansion leads, the AEs were just not working on them, and they were, those leads will eventually die because the AEs were chasing new logo. In that situation, we hired an account manager whose job was to work on just expansions only. And then the AEs were asked to focus on new logos. And I think that works well. Because now you have someone, and it's a completely different profile, because the account manager was a farmer type profile, and the AEs are the hunters who are chasing new logos. Now, I think for smaller organizations, what I find is we complicate things too quickly. All of a sudden you have 5 or 6 different roles that are all kind of doing sort of similar things. You have a BDR as well as an SDR, and then you have an AE account manager and a CSM and a relationship renewal manager. Now you have 6 or 7 different people who are talking to me, the CIO of a company, and I'm asking, like, I'm only spending 20 grand a year with you guys. You guys are really stressing me out. So I always push for simplicity. I think if you have a scenario where you're trying to debate whether you introduce an account manager into the mix, I would say maybe look to expand the role of the CSM, to do some of that account management stuff, but realign the comp plan so that the CS work doesn't suffer. I'm a big fan of having like a variable portion. So like when we look at CS comp plans, we typically have a base salary and a variable portion that's tied to certain KPIs. But you can play around with the weightings of the KPIs to focus on what you want to focus on a particular quarter or in a particular year. So if I want my CSMs to do a little bit of expansion work, which is what account managers do, I might, pay them 70% on renewals and NDR and 30% on expansion. So they know, like, you make money driving expansions, but that's not the core of your function, right? So try not to overcomplicate things by having too many different roles, because unless your business is really large or you have a really large organization, it just causes a lot more challenges than it solves.
Yeah. And I also believe that comp drives behavior. Like, you don't try
100%.
Exactly. You don't try and reinforce it by language. But we're assuming the leadership in these organizations do have, because Prisha has a question, And I really like the question. She's asking, or he, forgive me if I got the gender wrong. How do you show the impact of customer success when leadership only cares about new sales? And this is the scenario we see so much. And the
Yeah.
people in the field know you need some sort of customer success function to be able to get referrals, to be able to get upsells, to be able to get
Correct.
cross-sell, and then not to have your name in the particular industry where a customer is saying you're not doing well. And it can be
Yeah.
really challenging, right? So
Yeah.
I know it's an education piece, but from the founder or the business leader or business owner side point of view, and then also from the CSM's point of view, are there any like nuggets you can share of how they can think differently about this?
Yes, you need to be able to tie your role or your job to a revenue number. Simple. You know, when organizations do layoffs, job cuts, you know, they typically start from functions that are not correlated to revenue. Whether it's right or wrong, we can debate that, but that's typically what you see. So whatever job you're doing, you need to be able to tell a story of how that either increases revenue for the business or reduces cost. Whether you're, office manager, whether you're a CSM, whether you're in support, even if you cannot tell that story, you're in trouble. That's just the bottom line. You know, we've had our debates where people say CS should not be owning revenue numbers because we're not salespeople. I'm like, you're just gonna put yourself out of a job. Like, so how do you justify your existence to the organization if you cannot connect the dot from the work you do to revenue numbers? So in CS, that's where we, our North Star is net dollar retention, right? And what net dollar retention basically is at the start of the year, Napa, I gave you 100 accounts who are spending 100K a year. At the end of the year, you gave me back 120K. And so your net dollar retention is 120%. I can show that I've grown the business by 20%. It's hard for anyone to argue that I'm not having an impact, but if you cannot tell that story, then you're always going to be in trouble. Yes.
So follow the money and use data. That's
100%. 100%.
That's just the things, yeah.
And if data is not available, you need to find a way to mix and match and build your own data set so you can tell the story.
Yeah.
I'll give you, like, when I joined one SaaS company and I was CSM number 1, I just got a spreadsheet of customers. And that was it. Like, go figure it out. And then you have to start building things. Get data where you can, extrapolate where you can, make reasonable assumptions where you can. But you need to be able to tell a story of, this is the size of my territory or my book of business. Over the next 3 months, over the next year, this is what my book of business looks like now. And have I had an impact? Even if I'm not growing the business, can I show, like, okay, I've reduced attrition? Because money is money, whether it's growth or preventing loss, it's still impactful. But you need to be able to tell that story. So one way you can tell the attrition story is, when I took over this book of business, we had 20 customers that were flagged at risk because their usage was below 30%. Those 20 customers amount to $60,000 worth of revenue. Now, in working with them over the next 6 months, we were able to ramp up utilization for 15 of them, and they were able to renew, right? And, we got $40,000. I can show, like, the business was going to lose 60K, and I was able to save 40K of that. Even though we lost 20K, but at least it's still an improvement on where we were before I started doing the job. So if you cannot tell that story, and by the way, storytelling is a big part of anybody's job. If you cannot tell the story of what you're doing, you're always going to be in trouble, and you're always going to struggle to advance in your career. So it's a skill I encourage everyone to develop.
100%. I say storytelling humanizes data.
Oh, absolutely.
And you can tell a story about any 2 pieces of data or any 2 pieces of something you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's really important to be able to tie it to revenue, because Sarah is throwing some shots in the chat and she's saying that marketing functions like content creators and copywriters are always the first to go.
But
So-
I'll tell you, if I was a marketer, can you tell the story of how many leads we generated?
Yeah.
What does that look like on a month-by-month basis? Are you following up with sales to see like what does the conversion look like? What does that funnel look like at the end of the day? It's all well and good, you're putting out a lot of content, you're getting lots of leads. But if I ask you like, Sarah, what's the impact of your role this quarter? You're just gonna say, we had 6 webinars, or we published 4 posts on our blog. And you cannot tell me the story of how that converts to a dollar number. And with AI now, I'm telling you, like, everyone is on notice because of the AI revolution. So the more you can tell the number story, the more you can show that you're adding value to the organization.
100%, 100%. Okay, so Love actually has 2 questions. And I think it's coming back to how you said the framework you use to build out a CS team. How would a business know what they need to build a CS team for? And then the second thing is around tools. I'm actually interested in this because I believe CSMs use the same CRM
we do.
as salespeople. They just have a different view, but that's a question from Love as well.
Yeah. So the first question on what kind of CS organization do you want to have is a function of 2 things. Number one is, as a leadership, you need to figure out, what stage of growth are you in and what's priority for you. Early stage is really about customer acquisition.
Yep.
And CS is maybe seen more as just a retention mechanism, right? And then as an organization matures, what you find is it's harder, it's becoming more expensive to acquire new customers. So if you're smart, you should at least be working to retain and grow the ones you have. And that's where the CS charter starts to move a little bit from retention to expansion. So it's largely a function of where you are in the journey, right? But secondly, CS leadership can also dictate what they want to do. And I'll give you an example. In a company I was working for, CS was a retention engine. That's it. I did, one of the first things I did when I joined was to do what we call a day in the life survey. So we asked CSMs, on average, how many hours in a week are you spending chasing renewals, doing renewal quotes, support escalation, so on and so forth. And just by doing that, we could see that CSMs were just really retention, renewal and support escalation. And so for me, I said, well, that's all well and good, but that CS role of support and renewal is not a lot of fun. It's not particularly something I want to be spending. Like, that doesn't just motivate me. And it's also harder to tie that to revenue. I want over the next couple years to turn the CS org around from being a retention engine to being a growth engine, right? So you can also call your shot and say, this is what I want to do. But you need to be able to explain how that impacts the business revenue-wise in a positive way, right? Now, in terms of the tools, CS use CRMs just like salespeople do. But you also have now an overlay of what they call customer intelligence platforms. So Gainsight, PlanHat, Totango, and so on and so forth. And what those customer intelligence platforms do is they help the CS org with things like customer health score, with triggering activities and engagement playbooks based on customer health, so on and so forth. Then a lot of them are very heavy with AI tools and features to do that. So I can look at a book of business of 100 customers and say, like Napa, 50 of your 100 customers are green, they're healthy. We should maybe be focusing on growth and trying to upsell there. 20% are yellow, they're doing well, but we want to see how we can ramp up their adoption. 30% are red, and that's a big risk. And your focus should be on retention and trying to save them. So a lot of organizations are starting to overlay those customer intelligence platforms on top. Even if you don't want to spend that money, and I would say as a startup, you probably shouldn't spend that money.
Mhm.
You should try and replicate that same type of feature and functionality. And you can do that easily with Google Sheets. These days, go to ChatGPT and ask it to help you build a framework for customer health score in a Google Sheet template. It would do a fantastic job for you. So, that's one way you can augment those customer intelligence platforms that are out there now.
Nice. And I'm always an advocate of starting simple,
Always.
We don't need to complicate. We don't need to complicate life. Yeah, and love. Apart from CS, we also have many people that come on the CRM. You can have solution architects,
Marketing.
you can have ops. You can everybody can be on the CRM. Just different views.
Yes.
All right.
So sales will look at things like deal views, pipeline.
Yeah.
CS is looking more at like your renewals. Managing your renewal deals are also in your CRM. So we're looking at renewals, we're looking at expansion pipeline, we're updating our account notes and things like that in the CRM as well, success plans, so on and so forth.
Okay. So please, if anybody has questions, we just have about 10 more minutes left with Arinze, but please, if you have questions, take it in the chat. So Arinze, the last portion of our show, I'm calling it a show, is rapid fire. I want you to be as honest as possible.
Okay.
Okay. The first one is Net Promoter Score a yay or a nay?
It's a.
Oh
it's,
no! Are you going to shake a table?
It's mostly a yay. It's mostly a yay.
Nice.
Mostly a yay.
Okay.
Why I hesitate a little bit is I do think the question is a little bit too generic.
Okay.
Right. The Net Promoter Score is typically asking how likely are you to recommend
Yes.
our product.
And a lot of startups use it sometimes to even raise. It's part of their
Correct.
deck. So
and it's also very manipulatable.
That is the point, because and again, you can't really estimate the population that is like, it's so vague. You can't say that out of my 100 customers at any time 80% respond and it's the same 80%.
And I'll tell you the other issue I have with NPS. The way NPS is calculated is promoters minus detractors divided by the total number of customers surveyed. Mm-hmm. But the promoter score only counts a 9 and a 10. Detractors is 0 to 6. Yeah. And a 7 to 8 is neutral. We're all Nigerians. We all went to school in Nigeria. You can do a perfect score in your essay, but your teacher is going to give you an 8 out of 10. The problem is that's how Nigerians do surveys. And not just Nigerians, that's how people in general do surveys.
Yes.
And so a customer might think your product is fantastic, but they're going to give you an 8. The problem is on the NPS score, 8 is not a promoter score.
It's not a promoter score.
It's a neutral score. So it doesn't always tell the true picture.
Yeah.
Also, if you catch a customer at the wrong time, they can give you a terrible score. That is not necessarily a good reflection of their overall feeling. I had a terrible experience at my bank. And unfortunately for them, they sent me an NPS survey the next day. And, I felt it, but I felt bad. But I had to vent. So that's why I'm a little bit hesitant on NPS. Yeah.
Look, I don't know how I feel about NPS. Like, I just don't know. I've never felt it was there are enough guardrails around it for it to be a sure bet. That's always been my issue with NPS. But it is valuable data, right?
It is. What's actually more important is what you do with the NPS. And I'll give you an example. So at Salesforce, one of our KPIs was NPS. But interestingly, you actually get compensated on your response rate, not the score. Initially, we used to compensate people on the NPS score. And then, of course, CSM would say, please give me a 9. Or they're not going to pay me my bonus.
Begging. No, I'm begging for a 9.
And then all of a sudden, like, the NPS score just went through the roof. But when we correlated the NPS score to the renewal rate, the math wasn't mathing. Because if your NPS score is very high, it means all your customers love your product. So why are they churning? And so we stopped comping people on the score and we started comping people on the response rate. So we want as many people to respond to the NPS survey. And if you think we're a 0, give us a 0. Because what we then do is we take all the detractors and then the CSMs have to reach out to those people and have a proper conversation and understand what the issue is and try and resolve whatever challenges they're having. So in 6 months' time, if you do another NPS survey, you hope that person that gave you a 2 last time would give you a 7 or an 8. So it depends on what you use the score for. If you're just trying to get a high score, so there's a company I work for, I'm not going to name them. We used to give customers vouchers to give us high NPS scores. So
the side I am giving you now.
I'm just saying that's
no. You're just
again,
saying. You're just.
We
saying.
were in a raising cycle, and we
Exactly.
wanted to show our the market.
You see what I mean about NPS, but I think what you've said is quite powerful. It's not about the trying to get a high score. It's using it to get information that can influence internal decisions, which is like behaviors, or two, external engagement with your clients. Now that makes sense. But NPS has been
we look at the score. We look at the score reason. So not just the score, but the comments people leave.
Yeah.
If you're seeing a lot of comments about a particular product or feature, like that's wonderful feedback for the product team. I mean, that's as objective a feature as you're gonna get. If you roll out a new feature and customers give you a bunch of 5 and 6s, and a lot of the comments are, we prefer how it was before the rollout and whatever, like that's wonderful feedback. So that's more valuable than saying, all our customers love us. I mean, like, again, unless you're trying to use that to raise money or whatever, it's valuable to your business.
It's very valuable. Love mentioned the bank, but I will not mention the bank that their logo is orange. So, apart from customer success and sales also has a lot of issues with marketing. It's like sales we has beef with every part of the revenue org, even data as well. Sales be selling. So Sarah is asking, how do you see marketing fitting into the customer success conversation, especially when it comes to driving renewals and loyalty?
Yeah, so it's interesting because very early on in my CS career, we never talked to marketing because our thinking was always marketing was top of funnel, CS is bottom of funnel. Yeah. We don't really mix, but that trend has changed quite considerably because I have lots of happy customers. My retention rate is great. Adoption is wonderful. Can I use that as an engine to drive revenue for the business? Marketing can help me craft some customer stories, some advocacy stories. We publish those. Now more people see that and they think, wow, this product is wonderful. And that generates pipeline, right? So we work very closely with marketing on events. We work very closely with marketing on customer stories, customer advocacy. We do things like customer advisory boards, for instance, and that's really CS and marketing. So we can get like our top customers, right? And we get like executives or leadership from there. Maybe once or twice a year, we get together, we discuss the product, we share the product roadmap, we give them a chance to share feedback. They feel wonderful because they feel like they're actually influencing the development of the product, which is great. And for us, you're building advocates within the organization as well, right? So there are lots of different things customer success and marketing can do together to drive, to drive business. The other interesting thing is, a few years ago, a company I worked for, we decided to launch something called the Customer Awards. And we did a top 100 customer list. Customers don't know like how we chose or selected. I couldn't even tell you. But it was a wonderful initiative because what you realize is customers are very competitive. If you publish the customer awards list and you said GT Bank in the banking sector, your top 10 was number 1 and Zenith Bank was number 2, I promise you someone at Zenith Bank is going to have a conversation with you to understand what is GT Bank doing, that they're number 1 and we're number 2. And that's an initiative we worked very closely with marketing on, right? So again, there are lots of different things CS and marketing can do together.
I really like this. And it reminds me, I think I was speaking, I don't know if Cynthia is on the call. I was speaking with Cynthia that joined the meeting yesterday, and we're talking about Canva, like how customers are so invested in Canva. And she was mentioning a feature that they have called Wish, Make a Wish.
Yeah.
So you put down something you want Canva to be able to do in the future. And I feel that is a customer success function at scale, but it's been baked into all the events, right? And then this top 100 customers, oh my gosh, like it would drive so much upsell.
It's unbelievable.
So much.
It's
so
unbelievable. We had and like we'll send them a nice plaque, you know, and like sometimes you go for a customer meeting and you see the CEO is displaying it, you know, like number 6 in oil and gas industry. And I'll tease the CEO like, you know, this year, what's up? Like number 6 is all right, but you can do better.
No, do you know you can do this? No, my gosh, that sounds like, you know, Arinze, you could actually go into the meeting instead of having a QBR, a quarterly business review.
Yes,
you say, how do we move you from 6 to 2?
Literally,
how do
that's
we move you from 6 to 1? You know, it's just so great.
And that idea came from SAP, because if you remember, SAP used to do the value benchmarking. So when we do the value realization and ROI, we can show you where you stand compared to the industry standard. And like of all the things you discuss with a customer during the ROI value realization conversation, that's what they get the most like salty about.
We're all just the same, to be honest. Like
when you show
them, like
when you show like you're tracking below industry benchmark, everyone wants to know like why? What's the logic behind that? How can we improve? So healthy competition is always good.
It's always a great thing. So we only have 5 more minutes, Arinze. One last question before we take announcements.
Yes.
How do you see AI impacting customer success in the future, since you're so good at looking into the future? You know,
I'll tell you, AI is going to be a game changer. CS functions will always exist, especially with high value customers. I think there are very few companies that are going to experiment with their most strategic accounts in AI.
Okay.
I mean, you know, imagine you have a customer spending 20 million a year. I think it's going to be a while before you say you don't get a human. You
get a robot.
You know, but AI will make CS a lot more efficient, a lot more productive. We're already seeing today that CS orgs are shrinking. You know, if I need 20 people in my CS org, a lot of organizations are now thinking, can I do the job with 15 and, you know, augment that with AI? I don't think that's going to go away. I also think AI will help CSMs become even more productive in the way they do the work. You know, especially when it comes to data crunching, looking at insights at the customer level or at the territory level. So it will have positive impact, but no doubt, you know, back in the day, CS orgs were 200 deep. I think a lot of that is, and Salesforce is an example, you know, the CS org isn't going to grow as it was in the past because we're doing a lot of cool things with AI to augment those functions.
Yeah, and it's not just CS, it's sales, it's copywriting, it's marketing, it's but what makes me the most hopeful about AI is that it's giving us the space to do more complex work.
Oh, absolutely.
More creative work. So that's how we should see it.
And just my last word on AI, I actually wrote a piece on this a couple of weeks ago. AI will not replace your job, but someone who uses AI well is going to take your job from you. So the sooner you figure out how to make AI your friend, this is what people don't realize. AI can make you come across a lot smarter than you are. Trust me. Like sometimes I do some cool stuff at work and people think I'm a genius. And I'm just like, if only ChatGPT could talk, I'd be busted. I'm serious. So everyone should experiment in their own way and see how they can leverage AI just to do more in their day-to-day, whether it's reporting, you know, whether it's preparing presentations, you know, like if you're doing a QBR, how can that help you just do a better job of it, you know, so on and so forth. It's a game changer. Yeah.
Definitely. Arinze, thank you so much for your time. I feel like we were talking for just 5 minutes, and I've learned a lot. I hope other people on the call have learned a lot. And don't mind what Arinze says, he is a genius. It's one of the first things you will know about him. So Arinze, thank you so much. We really appreciate you making out the time.
No, I'm
I hope
always
that
happy to do so.
Oh, thanks, Arinze. So I'm handing over to you, Sarah, to close us out with the last 2 minutes.
Thank you, Napa. Thank you, Arinze. Like, I really learned a lot from this session, and we are so grateful for your time and participation. Happy customers buy more. So definitely the customer support is not like a cost function role, but rather a revenue driver role. And you definitely, in quote, finished work today in this session. So thank you once again. Speaking of insights, we have some really nice goodie bags lined up for you today. So before you go, you can grab these helpful tools that I'm going to mention shortly. The first one is the Automate Customer Onboarding Checklist for Growth. Like we've been mentioning in this session, customer support is part of the revenue engine, and you can't start the customer support without onboarding your customers correctly. So we created this checklist to help you basically tick off things that are necessary, that you need to do before you move your customer to the next stage. We also have the CRM Power Pack and CRM spreadsheet. So if you're confused on what CRM tools to use, we've listed out specific CRM tools with great advantages, great insights, and even listed out the ones that may not be quite suitable for your organization or for your needs. So download this to Spreadsheet and Power Pack because it's very useful. Another thing that we have for you is Web Mechanics newsletter. So if you want to continue gaining valuable strategies and tips that will help you grow in your revenue function role, I invite you all to subscribe to the Web Mechanics newsletter. The links will be dropped in the chat. It's very insightful. You get job updates, you get sales tips, and so much more. Again, if you are looking for fresh job or grant opportunities, you can join our channel for regular updates on opportunities that are worth applying for. And lastly, would love your feedback and for you to follow us on all social media platforms. Thank you once again for taking out the time to, engage and participate with us in this session. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.